Let's talk about one of the most chaotic presidencies in all of American history. We're diving into the story of Andrew Johnson, the man who became president right after Abraham Lincoln's assassination and was immediately thrown into the fire of a national crisis. And it's a reputation that has really stuck for over a century and a half. So how does a guy who basically lived the American dream end up on trial, nearly get kicked out of office, and land at the bottom of almost every single presidential ranking? That's the big question here.
To really get the conflict that defined his presidency, you have to understand his unbelievable journey. Johnson was born poor, never went to a single day of school, and started out as a tailor's apprentice. But his ambition, well, it was off the charts. He just kept climbing the political ladder, from a local mayor all the way to the White House.
See, Johnson's presidency wasn't something he won in an election. It was the result of a national tragedy, happening at what was probably the most fragile moment in the country's entire history. The Civil War is literally just ending when, suddenly, Johnson is president. Now, remember, he was a Southern Democrat. The Republican Lincoln picked him as his running mate to show unity on a national Union ticket. But now, he was suddenly all alone, tasked with putting a shattered nation back together. And the massive challenge he inherited was called Reconstruction. I mean, how do you bring the defeated Confederate states back into the Union? And what was going to happen to 4 million newly freed slaves? The answers to these questions would define his entire presidency. Johnson absolutely had his own ideas about how Reconstruction should go. The problem? The Republican-controlled Congress had a completely, and I mean completely, different vision. This set the stage for an immediate and really bitter power struggle. So the whole conflict really boiled down to two totally different philosophies. Johnson, a Southerner who believed deeply in states' rights, wanted to bring the South back in fast and easy. He offered pardons to ex-Confederates and thought the rights of the formerly enslaved should be handled by the very states that fought to keep them enslaved. But Congress, led by a group called the Radical Republicans, wanted to totally reshape the South and use federal power to protect the civil rights of African Americans. Johnson pulls out his biggest constitutional weapon, the veto, to try and stop Congress. He vetoed bills designed to help former slaves. He vetoed a bill to grant them citizenship. But Congress fought right back. For the first time ever on a major piece of legislation, they got enough votes to override his vetoes. And that basically signaled an all-out political war. And this political fight got personal, fast. In this angry, off-the-cuff speech from the White House, Johnson actually started naming his political enemies in Congress, calling them traitors. I mean, it was a completely unprecedented attack on a co-equal branch of government, and it just torched any goodwill he had left. He even did something unbelievable. He went on a campaign tour against a constitutional amendment. He saw the 14th Amendment, which is now a cornerstone of American civil rights, as a huge overreach of federal power. This move totally alienated him from just about every Republican in Washington. You can probably see where this is all headed, right? This constant battle was building towards the ultimate constitutional showdown, the impeachment of a sitting president. Congress basically tried to set a trap for him. They passed a law called the Tenure of Office Act to stop him from firing cabinet members without their permission. Johnson thought the law was unconstitutional, so he decided to challenge it head-on. He fired his Secretary of War, Edwin Stanton, who was secretly working with Johnson's opponents anyway. And for the House of Representatives, that was it. That was the last straw. They quickly voted to impeach him. So after a dramatic 3-month trial in the Senate, everything came down to this. 1. A single vote. Senator Edmund Ross of Kansas cast the deciding not guilty vote. And just like that, Andrew Johnson got to stay president. He was politically shattered, but he wasn't removed from office. Now, you'd think his political career was toast, but his story wasn't quite over. And what's really amazing is that the historical records, the very papers that let us tell this story today, almost didn't survive at all. In a political comeback you just couldn't make up today, Johnson didn't fade away. The people of Tennessee actually elected him back to the U.S. Senate, the very same group that had put him on trial. For Johnson, this was everything. This was his ultimate vindication. But here's a fascinating little twist to his story. We almost lost the ability to even tell it. Most of his personal papers, the records of his entire career before he was president, were destroyed when his home was occupied by soldiers during the Civil War.
And you could just feel the anxiety in this letter from his son, Robert. They were terrified that everything, letters, speeches, records, had been lost forever. It would have been like erasing the first 50 years of his life from history.
And yet, somehow, miraculously, a huge collection of his presidential papers did survive. And thanks to his family, we have everything from his official speeches to financial records from his old tailor shop. The collection even includes, get this, actual official tickets to his own impeachment trial. It's just this incredible, tangible link to one of the most dramatic moments in American history.
So in the end, the presidency of Andrew Johnson, this huge, chaotic moment in history, all hung by the thread of a single vote. It really leaves you with a powerful question. How different would the future of the presidency and of America itself have been if that one senator had decided to vote the other way?